people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
There's a lot of big name opponents out there. I know Gervonta Davis and his team would have a rematch with you. I know, Terence Crawford is right there. Are those the kind of names that you'd be looking at?
Yeah, for sure. Teofimo Lopez, even a 140 title with Rayo. I feel like at the right fight, I could go down to 140. So that's what I'm looking at. We'll see. If you got Rayo at 140 for a world title. Obviously, you got Teofimo Lopez. Working my way to the Gervonta rematch too. All those options seem good to me. It's something that intrigued me. Obviously, I don't fight anymore to fight, those in-between fights. But if I have to, if my team feels like that's the way to go, I also do that too. It's really just depending on how I feel with these exhibitions.
And in terms of the weight, 140, is that where you want to stay? 136 is too low, right?
No, way too low. 140 to 147. Obviously, I'm fighting 154 here, but that's not going to be my ideal weight class. Probably 147 is probably going to be more near it.
This guy doesn't have a plan. And if he does, well, that can't be it. Because after he moved up to 135 pounds, he never actually made 140. He always came in just over. And the last time, he came in at a whopping 3 pounds over. So how are we now supposed to believe that he could make 140 for Teofimo, or that he could make 140 for Rayo Valenzuela? Rayo Valenzuela, who's rumored to be going into a voluntary title defense against Gary Antoine Russell, who is still coming off that decision loss to Alberto Puello. Now, why Rayo would fight that guy voluntarily, I don't know.
You don't like that fight?
Well, it's not about me liking it or not liking it. It's just counterintuitive that you're volunteering to give this guy a title shot and he might beat you because he's a natural 140, whereas you're a little guy who moved up there. You're lucky to have that belt.
From 135.
They didn't do an Isaac Cruz rematch, even though some expected them to, and I thought he might use that as an opportunity to get the most out of his world title reign. Maybe he inks a pact with a Top Rank or a Matchroom 2 to 3 fight deal that caps off with a unification for good money.
I guess not.
Ryan mentioned him. Ryan mentioned Rayo Valenzuela. Being honest, if Ryan could get down to 140 and you made the fight with Rayo, it would sell. It absolutely would. 2 fighters of Mexican descent on the West Coast, you can sell it. As well as East Coast versus West, Ryan versus Teofimo, you can sell that too. But it's all contingent upon Ryan getting down to 140, which technically he never has.
You came in 3 pounds over for Devin Haney the last time we saw you. If you could make 140 pounds, then why didn't you?
Trouble in paradise, according to veteran promoter Oscar De La Hoya, who says, Golden Boy Promotions has the exclusive rights to Ryan Garcia's fights. The organizers of this event have acknowledged as such and have agreed in writing that our sign-off is needed for this event to occur, as no such sign-off has been given. As of today, there is no event with Ryan Garcia.
How does Oscar De La Hoya find the time to take so many shots at Canelo and so many shots at Eddie Hearn when he's got his own issues in-house to deal with? Him and Ryan don't get along, in case you forgot.
Sinicia Estrada left Golden Boy. It appears that Jaime Munguia has left them also, and Ryan Garcia, he tried to. He was unsuccessful.
He was trying to find a loophole to get away from Golden Boy Promotions, go off and do his own thing. It didn't work out.
From the days of the Romero-Duno fight, Ryan Garcia's relationship with Oscar and Golden Boy has been tumultuous, and that kind of fell into the background in light of the recent controversy involving Devin and the doping and all of that stuff. People kind of forgot that Ryan doesn't really get along with Oscar, and he doesn't really want to be at Golden Boy.
How did they get this far?
Without Golden Boy Promotions' approval, you've gotten to the point to where you're promoting the fight in Japan, you're promoting it in America, you did the press conference, but you didn't get the sign-off from Oscar?
You've sorted out the date, you've sorted out the location, you've even ramped up promotion for the show, but you didn't get the sign-off from Oscar.
And I wondered about this. I touched on it in my previous video that it doesn't look like there is any involvement from Golden Boy or DAZN where Ryan Garcia fights exclusively. Is this being an exhibition match? Is that somehow a loophole? Is the fight happening in Japan? Is that a loophole?
Did Ryan think it was?
He must have if he's already started promoting this show, promoting this fight without getting the green light from Oscar de la Coca to quell this disturbance. Ryan Garcia might either have to kick out a portion of his purse to Golden Boy Promotions, or the event coordinators might have to get DAZN and Golden Boy on board, give them the US rights to the fight to distribute it here in America. Another indicator that Ryan and Oscar just don't see eye to eye because Ryan is problematic and he wants to go off and do his own thing. He wants to operate with a level of autonomy that his existing deal does not allow him.
You're not a free agent.
Preliminary reports are already pouring in claiming that this event is canceled. I'm not sure we're there yet. I think the event's coordinators are likely scrambling behind the scenes to make sure that the show goes on however they can.
But even if Ryan found a way to make money during this suspension, found a way to still box, you still gotta answer to Oscar.
Ryan is unstable. That's been painfully obvious for years now when he talks about fights at 140 pounds with Teofimo and Rayo, knowing that he can't make it or he couldn't for his last fight, couldn't or didn't want to.
Unstable.
When he goes off with some Japanese promotional outfit thinking he can negotiate something with them, reach some kind of an arrangement with them that excludes Golden Boy.
Unstable.
This is the same instability we've been seeing from Ryan Garcia for years.
It's back.
Back. It never left.
This is Boots Ennis. What did you think of his performance a couple of weeks ago?
He got hit with that left hook about 1,000 times, and I think that his defense is. I think he's a little overrated. I would probably keep it simple. I think he's a little overrated, and I think that somebody with my talent, I think I could beat him.
See how Ryan's voice just kind of fades and cracks there towards the end? He doesn't believe what he's saying. Yes, Karen Chukadzian was able to land successive left hooks on Jaron Ennis, but it's a gross oversimplification to say that it's because Boots can't defend against the left hook. There's more to it than that.
And I'm not a fan of Boots Ennis, by the way.
I do think he has leaky defense, but I also think the reason that Karen was able to continuously land that particular punch on Boots is because of his movement, his pendulum step. That unless you're going to go in there on your toes, bouncing back and forth, in and out like Karen, landing the left hook might actually prove difficult.
Ryan doesn't fight like that.
Even if the left hook is Ryan's signature punch, you need that pendulum step to accent it, complement it, get it off, get it out.
That's how Karen did it.
You ain't Karen. You ain't got a Soviet style. I mean, Ryan Garcia is a guy who was able to land successive left hooks on Devin Haney, a guy who's a bit smaller, so he has to close the distance. Boots ain't smaller than you.
Nope.
Land the left hook on Devin Haney, who can't punch. He ain't got no power, where Boots, he does. And for as many times as Ryan landed that punch, it's not like you stopped him. You didn't knock him out. If you can't knock out pillow-fisted Devin,
you ain't knocking out hard-punching Boots.
It's what makes this a gross oversimplification. To just say, well, Karen was able to land the left hook on Boots repeatedly. There is more to it than that.
Ryan's all over the place.
You're talking about fights with Rayo and Teofimo at 140, but you're gonna land the left hook on Jaron Ennis at 147.
Is that before or after you fight Jake Paul at 185?
Ryan ain't gonna fight Jaron Ennis, man. He's just talking. Though as far as Jaron Ennis and what he's about to do, well, he's supposed to be en route to a Vergil Ortiz fight, yet another Golden Boy Promotions fighter.
Vergil Ortiz, Jaron Ennis. Those talks seem to be progressing now, Eddie. What can you tell me?
Yeah, they are progressing. I mean, there's still a lot of obstacles to come through, and we've got a call with Jaron later. Obviously, he wants to defend his 147-pound title. after the last fight, you know, he felt that maybe it was time to move. He does want to unify the division, but he would be more than open to a fight with Vergil Ortiz as well. So we're talking to the other champions, we're talking to Vergil Ortiz, and we'll make a decision this week on the next step for Jaron Ennis.
Do you have a somewhat of a front runner for what could be next for Jaron Ennis?
I like the, you know, the offer that we had was to fight Vergil Ortiz at 147, which is interesting because we get to keep our title, but you know, maybe there's a move at 54 as well.
Could Ortiz still make 147?
I don't know. I mean, that's the correspondence we received. So,
Correspondence from who? Not Vergil Ortiz, not Golden Boy Promotions. They know better than anybody that Vergil can't make that weight. He can't make 147. He hasn't fought there in 2 years. The last time he fought at welterweight was in August of 2022 against Michael McKinson.
It's not correspondence from Golden Boy, but it's not correspondence from Matchroom to Golden Boy either, because Matchroom ain't the ones footing the bill. Turkey and the Saudis are.
Some are interpreting this as Eddie Hearn's roundabout way of trying to drain Vergil Ortiz, trying to bring him down to a weight he knows he can't make, but I don't buy that because he's not the one putting together the show. He's not the one paying for it. It's not on him. If offers went out to both teams to do the fight at 47, it's gotta be because Turkey and the Saudis wanted it there for a title.
Well, they can't do it there. Rhabdomyolysis, Vergil can't get down that low. We know the story. Go to 54.
In the back of my mind, I was never convinced. I wasn't sure this fight would happen, much less now that we're hearing this 47 talk. I think Vergil wants to see this through. He wants to unify the welterweight division. I think that
Oscar doesn't have enough prize stallions that he could put one up on the chopping block against Jaron Ennis for no belt at all.
that is not how Oscar makes fights. He doesn't throw caution to the wind.
I don't get the sense this is gonna happen in February. And if it doesn't, it's alright. The card's pretty good as it is. Sugar Nunez versus Anthony Cacace, Hamza Shiraz versus Carlos Adames. I'm hearing that Zile Zhang might fight Agit Kabiel.
Artur Beterbiev might fight Dimitri Bivol again, and Daniel Dubois might fight former champion Joseph Parker. Those 4 or 5 fights by themselves make this a far better card than anything that is out there.
Anything else?
This is for February, you understand. The same month that David Benavidez is supposed to be fighting David Morrell. And when you compare that main event to this one, when you compare that show to this one,
that price tag,
compare that Benavidez versus Morrell is likely going to run you about $75 or $80, whereas this will cost you much less. Around $40-50?
Half.
It's a no-brainer. I have every intention of buying this Riyadh season show. Even if it's without Ortiz versus Ennis, I never really believed that fight was going to happen anyway, and I still don't.
It's too good to be true.
That's why, whether it's because Boots wants to stay at 147, or Oscar wants to protect his assets, or the Saudis want it to be at a weight that Vergil can't make, one way or another, I'm just not convinced this fight is going to happen.
I would sooner expect Vergil Ortiz to fight Sebastian Fundora next before Jaron Ennis.
Why?
You didn't hear what Errol Spence Jr. said the other day? That he hasn't heard anything from anyone in months. That being said, the wheels don't appear to be in motion for Spence versus Fundora, so maybe we can get Ortiz versus Fundora.
I could go for that. Finally, as it pertains to yet another fight on that same show, Eddie Hearn on the potential Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol rematch, I'm very confident. Watch this space, fingers crossed. Hopefully, we'll get some news on that soon. All signs seem to indicate that the boys are going to be running it back on this same show that we just talked about. Pretty quick turnaround when you think about it for 2 guys that just fought in October to return to action in February.
That's fast.
There was a worry that perhaps the rematch between them would take too long to make, as Artur Beterbiev is a practicing Muslim who observes Ramadan, which would start several days after the proposed fight date, the 22nd. Ramadan would start February 28th and end in March
30th.
I remember reading an article a few days ago from David Benavidez's promoter, Samson Lukowicz, that If by some chance the rematch between Artur and Dmitry were to take too long to make, they were going to push for the winner of the fight to be stripped, something along those lines. This remedies that if they get it on in February, just before Ramadan, that gives them enough time to have the fight and Artur enough time to observe his religious practices.
As some felt these guys might not do it again until the fall of next year. This remedies that.
And that's welcome news. I think the quick turnaround favors the younger man. I think it favors Dmitry Bivol because he's not as war-torn, not as injury-prone as Artur, not as up there in age.
What's Artur, 40? Close to it?
Because he's been so injury-prone over the years. The duration of time from one fight to the next for Artur, many, many months, usually, whereas this
is fast.
But it is good for the profile of the fight and the conversation because you don't want to let too much time pass before you do it again. By the time you do, it may not be as interesting to the consumer, to those who just saw it. That if you want to do a rematch for a controversial fight, do it in a jiffy while it's still fresh in people's minds.
Don't let it turn into cold product.
Rematches are often won by the fighter who can change, the fighter who can adjust, and usually that's the cerebral fighter. Most would say that of the two, Dmitry is the more cerebral fighter. So what changes can he make on this kind of time frame? Because it doesn't give him a lot of time.
We've never seen Dmitry Bivol in a rematch situation. Or Artur, for that matter. They usually win their fights so decisively, there's no need for a second fight. There's no need for a rematch. This is the first time either fighter was involved in a controversial outcome.
Or maybe not so much controversial, but close. Very close. That you could have swung it either way. You could have swung it to Dmitry, but the judges swung it to Artur. And I don't expect to see a different Artur in the second fight. I don't expect much about his strategy to change because he doesn't really change much from one fight to the next, irrespective of who he's fighting. Whether it's a mover in Marcus Brown or a bulldozer in Joe Smith Jr., he fights pretty much the same fight. Looks the same from one fight to the next. It's Dmitry that has proven to be malleable.
Adaptable.
He can be defensively minded with some fighters and aggressive with some others. We've seen a lot of aggression from Dmitry ever since the Zurdo Ramirez fight. He's taken a more aggressive approach with Lyndon Arthur, with Malik Zanad. He even showed that aggression with Artur Beterbiev when he could.
In spots, he did throw a lot of punches. More punches than he usually throws.
So if anybody's going to change and try to be a little bit different in the rematch, I think it'll be Dmitry. I don't think it'll be Artur.
He's not going to do anything different.
The question is he the one that needs to? Does he need to change for Dmitry? Or can he go in there fighting the same fight and have the same, if not more, success? Because they both learned something about each other in their initial meeting.
It's a good question.
It doesn't look like this is going to be the main event of that February 22nd show. Maybe the co-main event, but who really cares so long as it happens? It looks like Daniel Dubois will be headlining opposite the ring Joseph Parker, potentially.
So many action fights on this card. You wonder that Joseph Parker might not spoil it?
Doubtful. If Joseph Parker doesn't want to go for the gusto, you can bet your bottom dollar that Daniel Dubois will.
Yeah.
All the proposed fights for this show are action fights.
So it all works out.